GM, everyone. It's Wednesday night. That's another episode of Let's Play Little Nouns. We're in season 3 of Nouns. It is a whole new ball game. We got a lot to cover on this episode. We got Index here as always, and we got a special guest of Pete coming up to submit a candidate prop towards the end of the show. But we're going to get started right after this. Hey, Index, GM.
GM Panda. Nice to be back. I mean, we were kind of back at one point or so, we thought, but now we're really back. Season 3 of Nouns, as everyone has kind of memed it and called it, officially begun. It was like the meme of season 3 was talked about for so long, but I don't know when it actually began. It was like we were in some like weird transition point, but I think we're fully in season 3 now of the show. I don't know, we're in like season 2 of the show maybe. But yeah, good to be back. Good to be talking nouns.
Yeah, I don't know if it's season 3, season 2, season 9. It feels like we've been doing this a long time, but having fun. Hey, we got just a quick disclaimer we do in every episode. Hey, this is a live stream adventure. This is not financial advice. We're not giving you any legal advice, financial advice. We are in fact sponsored by Little Nouns DAO, Prop 116. It's very difficult to play nouns, so we always like to kind of give that disclaimer. But yeah, this is Prop 116. Let's play Little Nouns. Pete, we're going to come to you a bit later on in the show. Sorry about I had Pete come on last week, and we ended up not recording a whole episode but not going live. So really appreciate Pete you coming back to the show this week. GM Pete.
GM, thanks for having me back on.
And feel free to chime in as we kind of go over this stuff. Yeah, season 3 of Nouns, Index. What is season 3? What, to someone who doesn't know what Nouns is, what is season 3?
I don't really know when like the seasons thing really started in Nouns, but largely believe that season 1 would be from the inception of Nouns down to the closing of that Discord back October 31st, 2022. And then season 2 would be from that Discord closure to essentially the fork. And so anything post fork is now season 3. Maybe a little bit of the fork was included there. That's kind of a little fuzzy to me when it actually began, but we can officially say that we're in the season 3 fork era, post fork era right now, October 31st. But that's not that important, I guess. Close enough. Yeah. So those are kind of like the three seasons of Nouns, and yeah, there's like a lot of uncertainty, a lot of excitement in Nouns right now, and I think everyone is trying to find their footing post fork, including ourselves. Maybe it'll be good for us, maybe bad for some, good for others. But we're gonna find out though, I think pretty soon.
Exciting times.
I think so.
I think that is,
yeah. You go, Panda.
I think that is so true. Yeah, Index. So season 3, what if we just go through a couple elements of Nouns? I'm just here at nouns.wtf. Auction price looks a little bit lower, but seems to be like 30s. How's that different in season 3?
So there's like a few different dynamics here. Season 2, the auction fell down to the low 20s. Little nouns, we know that well. We picked up a noun in the low 20s. And that was maybe kind of very early on into this arbitrage arc of nouns. And as the fork got closer and more certain, those auction prices actually started going up closer to the arbitrage value that forkers would get. And so we saw them going up to like 36, 35, somewhere around there. And then post fork, technically, the book value is still around 36.6. So if you can accumulate enough tokens, 20% of total, or adjusted total supply, I should say, of nouns tokens, you could still potentially fork now for about 36.6. I don't know exactly what it is. And so there's a few things here. Either people bidding on these auctions still think that they can pull off a second fork and ARB, but then the other dynamic that we have in our Figma is blur. There was a lot of leftover stale blur bids that were quite high, close to book value. And as of like yesterday or today, those are now all gone, and the floor bid on blur is down to like 16 ETH. And so there's a chance this next auction kind of comes back to maybe reality here. But either that, if it doesn't, then we have some arbors at play.
Yeah, and it's like the lower the auction is, the more attractive the ARB is. It's almost like it's going to be in this like permanent state.
Sort of.
I don't know, it's
Yeah,
obviously too early to say that, but that's how it feels.
It's like a game of cat and mouse, because I mean, I don't know how the arbors feel. I'm not in like the arbor shoes. I chose not to fork. I stayed with the DAO. And obviously, those who stayed wish to not really experience another fork like that, especially not like in a fork where so much was extracted and like profitable forking occurred. So those who are arbing right now or buying these nouns with the intention to arb, I don't know if I'd call it risk-free value like it used to be called. It might be a little slightly more risky now, but we'll see. It's a game. If the ARB can close within 100 nouns or so, that's kind of like the magic number, 20%, 80 to 100 nouns.
Okay, let's put that on ice for a second and just kind of keep going through season 3. I clicked over to the treasury. Big change in the treasury, down to 22 million, 13,000 ETH. So I think this is kind of not quite well understood, but essentially, yeah, how is this different than season 2?
Well, it's interesting, I guess. I'm trying to think of how to best explain it. Season 2, the treasury was sitting at 50 million, and it kind of stayed there for a while. The DAO was spending, but the DAO was also bringing in money every day through the auction. Although, as we saw, all that money that came in through the auction eventually left with a tiny bit of surplus that was, at the end of the day, essentially subsidized by early noun auctions that went for quite a high price. They kind of like subsidized the ARB in a way. But yeah, the treasury used to sit at 50 million and now sits at that 22 million mark. Over half of the treasury was sent to a new treasury in the forked DAO, but now that forked DAO treasury is much lower. I don't know the actual number right now, but that means the nouns treasury split in two, and then that treasury that was split off got reduced significantly. So there's a lot less money in the nouns ecosystem currently, if I'm explaining it well. I feel like sometimes I'm too deep into nouns to take a step back.
I don't think so. Well, actually, Pete, what do you think? Does that kind of explain it?
Explain the fork?
Yeah.
It's an interesting situation with everything that went down. To be honest, I'm still wrapping my head around some aspects of it too. But from my angle, it definitely looked like the treasury split in half.
Yes. Okay. So let me try to explain this to you then, Pete. So I'm here still in this treasury um let's see, the treasury contract. Where am I? Okay, right here. So this is the new nouns treasury. The other thing I notice is there are these 285 NFT assets owned by nouns. And so, for example, noun 680, a great panda, or noun 758, another panda noun. These are now owned by the noun's treasury. Index, how do you make sense of that?
Yeah, I mean, like you could frame it a couple ways. Essentially, the Treasury just performed like the greatest floor sweep in history here, and it bought back hundreds of nouns at book value from people that want to leave the DAO, and then, but they don't get nothing in return. They get the money, and then they also get a new token and new DAO infrastructure by the way of smart contracts. So I started framing it that way, that like the DAO essentially just collected all this great art, bought their art back, and now could potentially get in the hands of people that kind of really want it and align more with those that stayed. I don't know if that's where you were going with it, but that's kind of how I've been reframing it in my head.
What's that new token, Index?
I mean, it's still called a nouns token, but it's essentially, so let's say we're looking at noun 733 here. There's another DAO, identical DAO, and there's an identical 733 token, and it has governance over the forked treasury, just as it used to have over the normal treasury.
Interesting.
So essentially two DAOs, but those in the new DAO can also turn in their token to the new DAO for their money back, which you couldn't quite do in the original DAO.
What's
So
the
we've seen
for doing that? That's an interesting utility to take advantage of if you want to.
it was just kind of like, instead of implementing it in the original DAO, essentially it was designed so that if a great large number of holders kind of were interested in this mechanic, they would have to form their own DAO in order to kind of do it, so that this this mechanic would never be implemented in the original DAO. Essentially, I think kind of like a loophole to implementing it.
Gotcha. Is there a new website for the new DAO?
There's no front end yet for it, as far as I know, but I'm not quite plugged into the new DAO. They have a tally set up. But there's no proposals on the tally front end, although there was one proposal apparently in there, just like a test one. So nothing, no real like on-chain activity yet, other than people kind of redeeming their token for money.
Gotcha.
So, to be determined still.
All right, I've got a question here, Index. So it looks like at the fork, there's 472 nouns who forked.
Yep.
So shouldn't there be 472 new NFTs in the Downs treasury? But instead it's only 285.
So that's has to do with the escrow period versus the joined fork period or fork period. So I forget who started off, but someone started off the escrow. They escrowed their noun and they said, "Hey, I'm looking to fork. Does anybody want to join me?" And it slowly built up. I think it only took a couple of days, so slowly might not be the right word. And then 20% of the DAO escrowed their tokens, and someone was able to then initiate the actual fork. And once that button was hit, everyone in the DAO had 7 days to decide whether they wanted to join that fork. And so if you join the fork after the 20% was hit and that lunatic hit the button, you don't get your noun back. That's irreversible. So once you join fork, you send your noun to the treasury, you get your share of the treasury sent to the new treasury, and you're issued a new token over that new treasury. If you join the escrow, then you had to kind of claim your noun because if you just joined the escrow, it was reversible. So they didn't want to give you the money yet. They want to give you the new token because there was a chance you could have pulled out. And so those escrow nouns sit in another contract, kind of off on their own.
Okay, so the escrow nouns plus 285 is going to equal that
472.
72.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's like 187 tokens sitting in that escrow contract waiting to be rescued.
Okay. All right. Let's get back to sort of the practicalities as we kind of navigate season 3 and chat about the proposals here. So first things off the bat is I noticed a bunch of new props, a bunch of new pendings. Let's see. Why don't we go to the protocol changes? And the other thing I was going to point out is this threshold now way down. It's only 38. Pre-fork, this was up at what, 90 plus or 80 something. So what's the significance there?
Yeah, so that's set to, I think, currently still 10% of total supply. And now in DAO v3 post-fork era, total supply is now really an adjusted total supply. So it's all noun tokens minus those in the treasury and that escrow. So I think we're sitting at like 400 and, well, I guess it's 380, right? Because this value is 10% of total supply. So it starts at 10%, which is 38. Previously, we were at like token 850 or something. So 80-ish, 85 was the minimum threshold that you had to meet. And that just means the number of 4 votes you need at a minimum to pass your prop, assuming you have more 4s than against. And that'll now go up to a maximum of 15%. So every against vote you receive on your prop, that number will go up by 1 to a maximum of 15% of total supply. I do kind of wish there was somewhere on the front end that showed the adjusted total supply. I keep having to kind of mentally do that math in my head every so often. So that'd be kind of like a good front end to have somewhere. But yeah, you're muted if you're talking us through here or not.
Oh, thanks. So yeah, I shifted us over towards to Nouns Agora to check out kind of the voting landscape. Because with the quorum much more attainable at 38, what's going on with the voter blocks? I see 285 and 187, so those are the forkers.
Yeah.
Nounders, they still have 50 nouns. And POAP, man, I thought POAP forked.
He did fork a very large portion of his holdings. I don't know all his addresses, but he has 3 different wallets, and he actually kept, I think it's 6 nouns across his 2 personal wallets, so ones that are not POAP at ETH, but a lot of these are delegations. So he has about 6 of his own, and then I think it's 16. This is going off the top of my head, so 16 of his nouns that are delegations from other people that I guess didn't fork. So he's still a player here.
For one has 18. Little nouns went down from 17 to 16. Noun 12, 9. He lost probably some delegations.
Yeah, he lost quite a few delegations. The one thing I don't think we've seen POAP vote yet, and I don't think we've seen the Nounders vote yet. So those 2 biggest blocks, I don't think they've come to play in the post-fork world yet.
Nouns sold down to 4. Governance pool totally diminished down to 4, right? So that's 10% of quorum. Still significant, potentially.
A massive change, maybe one of the biggest changes, I think, because right before the fork, the governance pool was like one of the hottest topics in the DAO, and now at 4, like Yeah, it's still a significant portion of quorum, but just not quite as exciting as like 60 or so.
Yep. Joel's still here with some sort of delegation. Maybe that's a limited delegation.
Yeah, that's the Agora liquid thing. So he's co-sharing kind of 40s, 20 from Zora. And yeah, 40 is down there too. I think you just passed him. But for some reason with the liquid, he gets put down towards the bottom. But he actively votes with all those.
22. So, 22 from 40 plus 16 from little nouns, basically, that gets you to quorum.
Yeah.
With 2 votes.
It's crazy.
All right. Well, let's see. Let's go back to props. I love this one because this changes the protocol, kind of tweaking the settings here. But this basically would speed up the process. So 2.5 days for editing, half-day delay, and then a 4-day voting period. That means start to finish in 7 days as opposed to 10 days.
Yeah, anything denominated in blocks is kind of like right up our alley. So this is kind of an interesting proposal in that it's trying to like speed up the proposal timeline, but also kind of activating a new feature that we haven't seen yet in the DAO.
And that's the set proposal updatable period in blocks.
Yeah, that I think if you have it there, you might as well use it. People are now allowed to change their proposals once they're on chain, and maybe we'll see a lot less cancellations and a lot less delays in like timeline. It just saves time, energy, and attention for everyone. Maybe decrease voter fatigue.
Yep. Any of these other props catch your eye? Anything you want to chat about, Index?
What's that beer one? Public good beer? What's that?
So this is sort of, if you're not familiar, Pete, this is kind of a second go at this prop.
Okay.
I don't know the changes yet. I haven't had time to dig in, but this proposal came on chain maybe within a month. So like a month ago or so, and it failed, but in a very, very close contest. So now that all the people that were looking to ARB and a lot of the heavy no voters are gone, I guess this is a good time to come back and try again. So yeah, this one failed narrowly in a previous iteration of the DAO.
Interesting.
So the total ask here is
45,800 USDC.
45,000.
Pretty reasonable. I don't remember what the original ask was, but yeah, it was largely believed that it failed because of the arbors.
So the arbors just didn't want to spend money out of the treasury because they wanted to take it for themselves. Is that essentially why?
Yeah, that accounted for maybe like 100 no votes. There were other members of the DAO that may have forked or stayed that also voted no. That just didn't like this prop for whatever reason. There was always that kind of like contingent in the DAO. It just grew exponentially with the ARB opportunity.
So what's your vote going to be on this one, Index?
I mean, I haven't read it yet, but I think I'm a 4. I think I voted 4 last time. I also sort of rescued the prop the first time because the proposer fell under the proposal threshold. And so once you do that, anybody can cancel your prop. And so I delegated in order to kind of rescue the proposal.
Is that why there's so many canceled props on there? Because people have just been canceling them when they fall under the threshold?
There was kind of a series of those. I think they were likely supported by people that had forked. And so once they forked off, anyone can come and just cancel a prop. So I think we saw a string of those. We saw a string of failures too for interesting dynamics, like the NARS prop recently, and another prop failed to meet vote threshold because a lot of the nouns that had forked were still included in that kind of like voting snapshot. And so threshold was calculated on a lot of nouns that had eventually forked.
Gotcha.
Props.
Yeah, a lot of weird dynamics like in this transition period that I don't think everyone really considered at the time that these proposals went up. But I don't know, maybe people didn't think the fork would happen so quickly, or maybe they thought it would happen faster. It's hard to say. Led to some funky outcomes.
Let's see if we can bounce over to sort of this candidate feature, because we got Pete on the show here. And I noticed Index, this NFTR prop began as a candidate, if I'm not mistaken. And we've got this new tab here for candidates. So can you kind of talk us through what's been going on with that?
Another one of the seriously game-changing features in DAO v3 is as candidates. So anyone can come to the DAO and put their prop out on chain in front of everybody. For a while, a lot of people come to the DAO and kind of get lost in where to go. Do I post in this Discord? Do I post on Discourse? Who should I reach out to? And so now there's like a very clear and viable way to get your prop out in front of the whole DAO. So that's this candidates. This costs 0.01 ETH to post. If you hold a noun in your wallet, you can post for free. And yeah, pretty much any nouner can come and give feedback. I think even if you're not a nouner, you can give feedback, just not on this website. You'd have to use a different front end or Etherscan. And then if a nouner likes your prop, they can kind of signal that they sponsor it and kind of assign their voting weight to your prop, and you can go on chain and they don't have to delegate to you. They don't have to kind of move their nouns around at all. They can still vote on these props as their own noun, but support it as well by sponsorship.
It's just needs one noun to sponsor?
Currently, that's kind of like a dynamic number that changes with token supply. We've gone over the math in like another show. I believe I did it the other day, and it will go up to 2 at noun 871. So you have a little bit of time, and it only takes one noun to go up. But when you hit 871, every prop that's on chain will need 2 nouns. And if they don't, then it can be canceled as well. Yeah, so right now just one if you're quick. That might be why we saw a flurry of props recently.
That's probably why.
Yeah, there's like a lot of small little rules to the game that you got to kind of learn. This candidate. What's your thoughts on this, Panda? You're kind of going over it.
Is this candidate secretly giving you noun 809 here?
I don't know if the transaction works. I think it will. No one's really tried it yet. But this is a transaction to withdraw from the escrow because these 2 nouns that this candidate wants to transfer were escrowed at first. They weren't post execution of the fork. So they're stuck in escrow. And yeah, permissionlessly trying to distribute a noun to me that I helped design. So kind of interesting. It hasn't gotten any attention yet, but this is Pipe, Little Nouner. I don't know if he listens or will listen, but it's quite the prop. This is almost like Carnegie Nounsworth, but but on another level. This is like role playing a little bit.
Yeah, I love it. So anyway, yeah, this candidate feature already a way to get on chain, because I noticed this 379 and 380 both started out as candidates, and now they're both on chain.
Yeah, I mean the big reason this was kind of like a game changer in the DAO also was that a couple people that were holding 2 nouns no longer felt the need to hold 2 nouns, and so they kind of sold off their second noun and now only hold 1. So sort of leveled the playing field a little bit. I mean, you still needed the nouns to go on chain, but you, I guess, as an individual noun holder, may feel less obligated to own multiple. So big dynamic in the middle of the fork kind of maybe accelerated some of the fork numbers a bit, I think. But
yep. A shout out Nouns Tube, watching us on YouTube live right now. Index, where should we go? We got a little bit more time. Are there any other kind of season 3 post fork things that we ought to be kind of talking about? What's different with season 3?
I think we kind of covered the big ones. I mean, that proposal from Seneca that puts the updatable period is kind of interesting. There's also a feature that I don't know if the current DAO is interested in, but remember that that kind of like, I don't know what the term they use, but where you can contest the result of a proposal. And so people that hadn't voted on a proposal could potentially have like a certain period of time where they can vote against one to overturn it. That's a feature that we haven't seen kind of proposed or brought to life yet.
Like a sudden death proposal mode.
Yeah, that's
it's funny because it's almost like an arbor's dream. It's like a joystick tool you can offer to arbors who want to say no to proposals.
Yeah, so I don't think we're seeing that one live at any moment. Those are kind of the big post fork highlights, I'd say, for the DAO. We've got a lot of nouns stuck in that escrow still. The updatable period will probably come into play soon. And the bigger thing looming over the whole DAO is how do you prevent another fork, or at least not another fork, but another profitable ARB fork. So to be determined, I think.
Yep. Well, let's, why don't we shift gears for a minute before we get into Pete, who's going to put a candidate up. What if we shift over sort of to kind of talk the meta about this show? Index, we've been doing this for a while, this Prop 116. A quick reminder, right, in 116, our deliverable is clear but open-ended. And it's clear in that all we have to do is get a prop up on Noun's main chain. But the timeline is sort of open to us. Do you think, I mean, we got to go on Noun's main chain, right? We don't have to also go on the fork, or do we owe some allegiance to the fork? How do you kind of think about that?
Wow, I didn't. I actually think I did consider it, but proposal 116. I mean, at the time that we did it, it was the main Nouns DAO, the original Nouns DAO. The fork DAO has a whole set of different contracts. So I think our allegiance on this one is to the original DAO. I'm still a member of it. So if we were ready for a prop right now, I could put that up as soon as possible. And yeah, maybe we can go to the fork DAO. There was one prop there, so maybe we could be the second prop. But I'm focused on the main DAO, trying to push that one forward in any way that I can help. And yeah, we got kind of an interesting one with 116, where literally our goal is to go on chain. We didn't really specify what, and just chronicle our journey on chain through the whole process. So we have a few options, I think, available to us. I don't know if you want to go over kind of some of our ideas yet, or save them for another show, but we should be on chains. No, I think, yeah, continue.
Yeah, I think we should definitely kind of lay them out, maybe see what Pete thinks. What do we talk about? Which one most excites you, Index?
Well, the one you were really excited about was like the Bring Nouns Home one, which, in a more technical sense, essentially transfers all the nouns stuck in that escrow contract to the main treasury and kind of unites them with the treasury nouns. Uh, that one's kind of interesting. It's like a nuanced transaction we haven't really seen yet. Maybe we'll see it by the time we go live. I don't know if it's contentious because it hasn't really been decided what's going to be done with the treasury nouns. But yeah, I don't see why we leave them there. It'd be cool to bring them together and have them all in one spot, one super collection of nouns.
Yeah, we'd have to make sure the transaction doesn't have any typos in the addresses there.
Yeah, we got to write out 187 different token IDs as of right now. So that's a little bit of a cumbersome one to write up, but kind of a fun one. Someone has to do it eventually.
Yep. Okay, a couple other ideas that I kind of thought about today was there's a lot of talk about what to do with these nouns in the treasury. Should they be given out? Should they be preserved? I think it'd be fun to give a noun to someone like Alad and David. Of course, the verbs team, OG nouners. Actually, I don't know if they own noun. Do they own a noun? Do you know, Index?
I don't think they own any nouns. The verbs team. I think they're delegated, or someone is delegated who's close to them, but they do not own any.
To me, they should own one. And so I think kind of a prop to kind of get one of those 472 kind of nouns that went through this fork process, I think to give them to Alad and one to Alad, one to David is kind of a recognition of their service, of a job well done, of taking this extremely complicated, difficult, contentious social issue of navigating this arbitrage environment and implementing code, getting it audited, and the code works. I mean, people are quitting. To me, that deserves some special recognition, and I'd at least like to see what the DAO thinks about giving out Alon and David a noun.
I think the DAO would be very interested in it. The one thing there, I think they'd have to be on board with it, which I don't know their sentiment about owning a noun is. Obviously, receiving a noun could potentially come with a tax obligation or some sort of hidden cost associated with it. So if they were interested in one, I'm pretty sure the DAO would be willing to distribute them one. So that one's a little complicated because, you could go permissionless, but I guess you'd also want to ask if they're interested and they're willing to receive one.
Yep.
And then one of my ideas kind of got stolen by Seneca, which I guess I felt it was going to come at some point, but was to just adjust with the kind of prop life cycle and add that updatable period because, we kind of like nouns the game and we try and play and tweak the settings. So I think if that one passes, that kind of takes it off the table. And then there's kind of like a super small, interesting one is that little nouns are currently sent to the old nouns DAO treasury. So like every 10 littles, I think that have ID 1 get sent to the nouns treasury. But only the nouns DAO can change that value. So littles can't propose in our own DAO to change it. We have to put up a prop at nouns and nouns have to vote to change it. And of course the nouns treasury has access to the old one, so it doesn't matter too much, but I think it'd be cool to have those littles in the new treasury and someone maybe even withdraw the old littles into the new one and kind of bring those all up to date.
What I like about that is it's the kind of proposal that I think could pass. It's hard to think of being opposed to that. And it also gets kind of little nouns, back on chain in a fresh way. We're still here. We're still participating. We're still interested. Take it seriously, and it really kind of is good, I think, payback for little nouns, and sort of a fitting way for 116 to play out.
Yeah, there's some like technical nuances to it as well. But I think we could get those figured out, and it'd be like a good way to say, hey, littles are here. We didn't fork. We want to keep giving you little nouns. We want to send them to the current treasury, and almost like a little marketing, little bit of like DAO alignment here. And I think it's a good chance. So maybe that's one of our top choices. We can always do them all. We can try candidate. We can try on-chain prop. We can even try going through littles, 2 nouns. I don't know. Depends, but nouns too with the comment they want to see us put that prop up ASAP. So
yeah, well, with that, Pete, do you have any questions? Which of these 4 would you like to see us do, or any thoughts?
I think I'm actually not as familiar with Elad and David, but if they did a good service for the DAO or for the project for nouns, then I think it's definitely worth giving them a noun. Although the tax implication is something that they should probably consider. I wonder if it's better to set it up so that they can claim it instead of just sending it to them. If maybe that makes a difference or not. But no, I'd support that one.
The funny thing is the people that would kind of develop a system like that would be Aladdin David.
Of course.
But Panda's seen them speak live in person, so I don't know if Panda, you want to give a little bit of color to them.
No, a little color to Elad. I mean, he's doxed, and he's paid. He's been paid pretty well by the DAO, but he's taken on a lot of risk personally. And he and David are the Verbs team who wrote the code for the fork, and have wrote the code for a lot of other kind of functional mechanics that the DAO uses, right? The USDC contract that lets proposals ask for USDC, a bunch of other stuff. Index, more than me, I think. They've been on chain a bunch. They had one of the most successful props. I love this when this happened, because basically they got the support of the arbitrage people and the non-arbors. And they went on chain because they designed this fork mechanism that the arbitrageurs needed. So yeah, you can look at that prop 311. Shout out Verbs team.
Yeah, they were kind of loved by both the forkers and the people who chose not to fork. Just a really powerful dev team that truly understands how nouns works, and they're kind of obsessed with trying to push the DAO forward and develop new tools and ways that the DAO can work kind of better and seamlessly. They've been around since Prop 4, so that's kind of like some serious nouns provenance.
Yeah, that's a long time to be with the DAO without having one.
Yeah, I think that's kind of why you'd have to check in with them to see if that's something they wanted to take on. But if anyone should have it, I think the Verbs team should have at least one noun.
Okay, well, we'll be back next week, obviously, and we're going to keep working on this index to figure out how to see through our prop. But here we're kind of in the last 15 minutes of the show. I want to hand it over to Pete. And Pete's going to give us a live demo, hopefully, of putting his own candidate up on chain. Let me add this to the page. Pete, is that you? I think that is. Take us through what you're doing here.
I don't know if that's the right page that I had up right now. If this stream will only capture one tab at a time, like if I switch tabs, will it update on the end?
So it would only
Let's
stream the
just
tab that you
start
selected
over.
at first. So you just select the new tab that you're in.
Let me try this again. 1 second. Oh, I see what I was doing wrong. Okay.
I do have a question if you're not too distracted, but
No, go ahead.
it's rare to have a face on this stream, even though you're wearing goggles. So if you had to choose a noun, do you have one in mind that you're?
I've been wanting to get one for quite some time. I think big nouns is maybe a little too expensive for me, but for little nouns, I mean, I've always liked a whole bunch of ones. Actually, I remember I found there's like a noun designer somewhere on one of the websites on the nouns page that you can just like randomly design a whole bunch of nouns at the same time, and I made some like pretty fun designs with like ducks. I need to find them because I don't remember where I put them. But I don't know. I think I'd probably start with a little noun, or there was another one that I heard of that's even smaller than little nouns, right? I forget the name of it.
The bit nouns.
Yeah, yeah, maybe one of those. Those are like practically free, right?
Yeah, we got to get you a bit noun. Maybe a duck bit noun.
Yeah, I think that'd be cool.
Yeah, I don't know if any commenters know anything about bit nouns, but feel free to drop a comment. All right, as we go shift over to Pete, got you here with Origin Ether tab. You're live.
Cool. Should be good to go then. So I think it probably makes sense for me to touch on just Origin Ether real quick again before I get into the candidate prop itself, just so that people watching understand what it is that I'm putting up. If that's cool, spend like a minute on this.
Yep.
Cool. So I mean, probably some people that have been on the prior nouns calls for like the Nouncil or the Tuesday or Thursday little nouns calls may have seen this from that. But from those who haven't, I'm with the Origin team, Origin Protocol, and Origin Ether is our new token that we launched about 4 months ago, and it's pretty cool. Essentially, it's backed by a couple other tokens, so backed by a few LSTs, specifically Lido, Rocket Pool, and Frax, and then ETH itself. And when users convert in from one of these 4 tokens, or I guess also wrapped ETH, so one of the 5 tokens, they get a 1-to-1 amount of Origin Ether. And then what happens is on the back end, those collateral tokens are streamed to one of the yield sources that we have over here. So I guess if it's an LST right now, that's just kind of going into our vault to collect the yield from that. But if it's ETH, then it's being streamed either to Morpho or to Curve and Convex. And then all of the yield that's generated from these yield sources is then passed back to everyone that's holding the Origin Ether token at an APY that's pretty good right now. This is showing 7.09, but this is actually wrong. I think we need to update this. The actual yield is a bit higher. It's over 8 now, which is pretty good. And that's the 30-day average. If we go back, actually it's even higher, which is kind of cool. And the main reason, though, for us being able to earn such a high yield when we're backed by LSTs is that there's other things that are going on other than just deploying to those yield strategies. And one of the big ones is that any OETH tokens that are sitting in smart contracts are not generating yield, but the yield has to go somewhere. And so instead that yield goes to everyone else that can receive yield, which is kind of cool. And that leads to like a pretty nice little boost. So like this is a good example right here of this many tokens are actually opted in to receive yield while this many are not. And that's where you get this multiplier here. So actually this is maybe not the greatest example because it's not that large a multiplier, but there are some days when this is like over 2 and it's great. So that's a pretty big contributor to the yield. Maybe this is a better example. Yeah, it's well, still a nice increase.
All right, so hold on, Pete.
Yeah.
So the basic idea is that nouns on Steth and your OETH, you believe, can return higher returns, and you want nouns to buy some OETH, basically exchange ETH.
Yeah, so
that's kind of the crux of your prop.
Convoluted explanation with this, but essentially the prop that I'm going to put up on the candidate page is to test out OETH as a yield opportunity for the Nouns treasury, essentially, since it is 1-to-1 with ETH and staked ETH as well. I guess for the test, it probably makes more sense to just use regular ETH. That way, if anything goes wrong, Nouns doesn't lose out on any potential profit from Lido. Yeah, the prop will be for a yield opportunity for the Nouns DAO, and a pretty good one.
Okay, so let's see it. Let's go. If you can hop over to the candidate page, let's see how you get this thing up, and then Index and I can help you if you have any questions. So you're over here at nouns.wtf/create-candidate.
Yep, and I got my wallet.
And all right, take us through this here. What are you going to do first?
So I got a little title right here that I'm going to throw in here, which is just reiterate that it is just a 1 ETH test. So I'm not asking for 400 or 500 like some previous test proposals. Just a 1 ETH test, test it out for a month, see how it goes, see if it works well, see if it's something that would be a good idea for maybe a follow-up proposal. And then I've got the actual full proposal here. 1 second, I'll paste it in here. It's a bit lengthy, but I did have a TLDR here. So the TLDR is essentially what we just went through. So to convert 1 ETH from the treasury into OETH to generate yield. And there's a lot more on here if the people reading it have more questions on how it works and what the benefits might be and how the additional funds might be used and what the potential risks are. But the TLDR is up there for anyone that is interested in seeing it. There's some good stats here too that give a high-level overview of Origin Ether. It's all in there, and so that would just be really step 1. Step 2 would just be to add the actions. So right now, if you did want to get Origin Ether, the easiest way to do it normally would be to go to the dApp, which is right here, and then you would connect your wallet, and you can put in the collateral that you would want to come through. So in this case, it would be ETH, but we're not connecting this to the dApp, so we have to go through a different way. So in this case, we're going to go through a function call instead. So for the proposal action, it actually has to be 2 actions. So the first is going to be, like I said, function call. And the function call we're going to put in here is, we're going to use the zapper, the OETH zapper, which will basically allow us to easily convert 1 ETH into OETH just through a smart contract transaction, essentially. So in this case, deposit 1 ETH into OETH is what this will do. Pretty easy. But we are going to add a second action as well, which will opt in the Nouns wallet for yield, just in case it's somehow not opted in automatically like it would be with most EOA wallets, because I'm not sure if the Nouns wallet is an EOA wallet. So that's why we're doing this, just to be safe. As worst case, it does not opt in. And
well, the Nouns wallet is a smart contract.
Okay, then that's perfect. So we would need to do this then. So for the second one, then we just have to call the opt-in function to make sure that smart contract is able to receive yield. So the first contract we put in here was for the zapper. The second one is for the token itself, the OETH token. And then we're going to choose the option of opting in, which should be this one right here. And we don't need anything in this section now. And that's really all that we would need to do here is deposit 1 and then opt in. And I guess if this were to pass and go on chain and then pass there, that would move 1 ETH into OETH and then opt them in for the treasury, the Nouns treasury, and then that would start earning yields pretty much the same day. Pretty easy. So I guess the next step is just submitting it, which would be right here for 0.01.
And then does OETH rebase like once a day?
It rebases at least once per day, but some days that goes a few times per day actually. So one of these, I don't remember which one of these it was, but one of these I had a couple of them. Yeah, this was the one. So these are 2 different rebase events. But like it says here, anyone can trigger that event if they want to. But if no one triggers it, then it happens at least once per day. Kind of like the same as staked ETH. I've seen days when there's like 6 or 7 of these which is fun because it's just more funds coming into everyone's wallet. But no, if no one else does that, then once per day is the minimum. Pretty easy. Should I go ahead
Interesting.
Okay.
submit this, or what do you think?
Let's go for it, right?
Yeah. We are live. So I guess this is
Okay, so this is,
I guess
since you
you
don't
can't-
own any nouns, it's going to cost you 0.01 ETH, right? So about what, $15?
Yeah, so I don't think you can see on the stream here, but it popped up my wallet here for the transaction, and it's costing me about $7 in gas plus the 0.01, so the total is about just over $23. So I'll go ahead and confirm that.
This is great. I'm going to learn what happens here, but Index, does this go to a new contract, or does this go to the main nouns governance contract as an event?
I believe this is a different contract.
Let's see, does that make it pop up here in candidates? There it is.
Yep, there it is just now. 0 out of 1, 1 ETH test stacking treasury yield with origin ether.
And then it's, yeah, I guess it's, let's just add the two transactions at the bottom here. Let's see.
Yep.
Yeah, there it is. Easy. That was pretty much seamless. I wonder if someone will sponsor it while we're on here. That would be nice. But what is this? Can I edit this? Will that cost me gas? All right. Oh, interesting.
It'll definitely cost you gas because it's on chain.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, it will cost you, but at least you won't have to pay the fee again, and you can get some real feedback and stuff and change according to the feedback. And then people can give you feedback again if they need to. I think anytime you make an update to the version, if someone did kind of sign sponsorship, they would have to re-sign it to the new version. So that's the only thing to keep in mind. But
okay.
Now you just kind of either wait for the feedback, or you can try and go out to some of the various Discords and say, hey, it's in the candidates. Here's the chance for some real feedback.
Well, I'll blast this everywhere. Everyone's gonna know about this candidate.
Nerman does
And
a good job
once
of
he
kind of like
gets-
sharing it. Yeah, you go, Panda.
Oh yeah, if he does get one sponsored vote, then what happens? Does Peter have to come back here and hit a button, or does it go right on chain?
Yeah, you will have to come back, and so if someone does sponsor, you'll come back to this page and you'll submit it to the actual DAO.
So there'll be a button here, and I'll just essentially click that and pay the gas, and that'll move it onto the props, on-chain
Yep.
prop.
Pretty much. It's pretty simple and easy. It's a good flow, I think.
That's simple enough. Would I be the one to have to click that button here, or can anyone do that theoretically?
I believe it's just you. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's just you. I don't know if that's a protocol level thing or a front end level thing, but at least on this front end, only you can.
Is there an amount of time that I would need to click that button within if this one gets sponsored, or not? Really?
So the nouners that will sponsor, they can set an expiration date to their sponsorship if they choose to do so. It could be anything from like a day to 3 days to weeks. So you'd have to see who sponsors and how long they sponsored you for.
Gotcha. Okay. That's cool. And then if it gets sponsored and I click this button, then it would come back to over here, and then it just goes into pending, like pretty much.
Yep. And right now it'll be a 5-day delay and then a 5-day voting period if you don't make it up before this Prop 376 goes through. So.
All right. Easy enough.
That was surprisingly seamless. I'm trying to see where the let's see where the 0.01 goes.
The 0.01 goes into the proxy, and the candidate goes up to a special candidate governance contract. And so that proxy is essentially what refunds the voting costs. And so your candidate at this time is kind of helping pay vote refunds.
Interesting.
Cool.
I can send you the well, you know how you can find it is go to the candidate page and go to his prop. Yeah, go to Peter's prop here. Click into it and then yeah, follow that link. So you can see 0.01 going to the proxy and then yep.
There you go. Subsidizing on-chain democracy. What's this? What's this here? A 0.00174,287 gas refund to Hip Rose?
Yeah, that was I think I voted for a prop earlier today. I'm known to do a little bit of voting here and there. Not my favorite DAO task, but I do my part.
Nice. Well, awesome. Peter, great to have you on. Appreciate your candidate. It's been a lot of fun.
Thanks again for having me.
All right. Index, we're going to be back probably next Wednesday. We're not quite sure. We might change the time a little bit. But you want to lead us out, Index?
You always put this on me and I do the worst job. But thanks for coming, Pete. Happy to be our first live candidate submission. We'll be back next week, maybe with a prop of our own. We'll see.
We'll see you next week, guys.
Nouns.
Sizzle reel. To have a show where people can kind of watch and understand what the whole process is, I think it'll be super valuable.
Nouns is designed for permissionless creativity. You should just start doing stuff.
Oh my God, the deadline is in 9 minutes.
Do these live interviews.
That's actually really a good question.
There are really very few yellows that are usable.
Larry King.
Stream directly to Twitter.
It's very funny to me that Will Price was in the intro.
Easier to stumble upon.
Ethereum is a name that describes a particular network.
Playing nouns like a game.
How well you know your onions.
Oh, I'm so bad at this.
A very fun, cool example of what's possible here.
Submitted.
Watching you work in Figma is very enjoyable in itself.